let people join on in, and then yeah, and then we'll go from there. I'll introduce you, and then I'd like you to just give a little background, and then yeah, just give a little background on what you do, and then we'll go into the questions.
Okay.
Awesome. So give me 1 second. Alrighty, people are joining on in. We have about 4 people so far. People are going ahead and just adding themselves on, which is great. All right, why don't we go ahead and just have you basically have you introduce. I'm going to introduce you, and then have you just go over your background. And I think this is going to be a great interview because I've always looked up to you, and I've always looked at what you're doing, and you're just so motivating, and you're so inspirational. And the 10th degree black belt is just amazing. So perfect. All right, cool. So this is Dan Anderson. Dan Anderson has done a lot of things, but I'll just go ahead and just let you know what he has done. He is a 10th degree black belt. He is a professional martial arts instructor. He's a humanitarian. He's done a lot of good for the communities around him and for the world at large. Very amazing. He's a family man. He's also very, very cool, very spiritual, very down to earth. You're gonna love him. I love having him on. It's a super great honor and an opportunity to have him on. I do want him to give you some background on what he does and how he does it, and that's what the interview is all going to be about. So, Dan, welcome. Thanks so much for joining.
You bet, Ryan. So, just a little bit of background about myself. I've been in martial arts for 54 years now, and it may not look it because of my wonderfully youthful appearance, despite my bald head. But I've been a professional instructor since 1970. I run a school here in Gresham, Oregon for 35 years now. And, that's basically what I do, for a living. Now, I've also authored 65 books and DVDs on martial arts. And then what I was doing was, I was competing. I was doing a lot of, karate fighting and that sort of thing in what's called point karate. And point karate could be almost looked upon as, let's say, fencing. So instead of, let's say, fighting to the death, what you do is you play to the first score, then they back you out. You get the score to go on. And so I was a regional champion. Then I became a national champion, and then I became a world champion. So, martial arts wise, I've done quite a bit, and I'm, keeping on. So that's kind of just a real basic background of what I do and what I'm doing at the present time.
That's amazing. I actually I think that's super great, and I think what's really cool about that is the fact that you've been at it for so long, and you have such a cool experience. And I've seen a lot of what you do, and I've seen it through social media, and I've also of course I've met you, and I know you, and you're amazing. And I think I do hold you highly in my life in terms of the person who's actually getting through the stops and barriers and making his dreams and targets come true, and really helping people in the midst of it, which is super great. So I do appreciate you, doing what you do and really just pushing on despite all obstacles, and just kind of, being that model of, no, this is how you do it. This is how you fight it with persistence. This is how you make your dreams and targets come true. And this is how you can do it with martial arts as well, which I think is an awesome little mix.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been quite a ride. It's been one of those where, when I first started doing martial arts, I was 14 years old. It was in Vancouver, Washington, a town, a sleepy little town of about 24,000 people. And there wasn't even a karate school there. I started training at the Martial Recreation Center under 2 green belts. Didn't have a black belt instructor. But the thing is, I had goals. I had a dream. I initially started out as a failed baseball player. I absolutely adored baseball, but I choked at the plate, and so at the end of my little league career, that was it. And then when I latched onto karate, the very obscure thing back in 1966, um, I got bit. I got bit by it lesson day one, and of course, I begged my mother, please let me do karate and so forth. And at that point in time, I didn't know that we really couldn't afford it, but it was like $10 a month, 1966 terms. But she thought it would be a 6-month venture, and then I'd move on to something else. And well, here we are, 54 years later. I'm I'm still I'm still hip deep in it. So yeah, it's it's funny, following your dream is an interesting thing, because when I was a kid, it was one of those where I didn't have anything to latch onto. I was very adrift. My family was not a close family by any means. And so, luckily, I didn't have the types of influences that we have now via social media and all the different types of all sorts of ways that one can go astray. At that point in time, it was you go outside and play till it got dark. You came home, ate dinner, etc. You hung out with the hoods and smoked cigarettes, or. And I just happened into a karate class, and the chief instructor, Lauren Christensen, who is very well known in real deal martial arts now, basically took me under his wing. He saw somebody who was just eager to learn, eager to get in and go. And so it was that kind of mentoring that started me off. And, from there, I just pretty much went on. So.
Wow. That's really neat. That's that's super cool. That's pretty funny. I mean, the investment that your mom basically invested into what has now become like a major part of your life, and you're so successful, and you've just basically made it so like, woo, here it is. I'm doing this. This is so great, and you've just
Yeah.
made it so pro and looks so easy. It's kind of cool, like it's
I
kind
don't
of
know
like, yeah.
how easy it was, but it was a labor of love. What can I say?
There you go. There you go. Well, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next question, because I think it builds on to that, and I think um, when you told me you're a 10th degree black belt, I was like, whoa, I never knew this. This is amazing, So I had to look it up myself, and it's actually a huge accomplishment. And I wanted to ask you this question, because I think many people kind of want to associate your success with something that might have driven you to that, and that's, what do you attribute this accomplishment to, in terms of the 10th degree black belt?
Well, here's an interesting thing. Let me give you just a slight background here, and that is, in the martial arts culture, to be, let's say, a numbers chaser. Gosh, what can I do to be 5th grade black? What can I do to be 6th grade black? When will you promote me to 8th grade black? Actually, that's really looked down upon in the culture. And so, was I striving for 10th degree black belt? No. When I grew up, martial arts wise, you could count the 10th degree black belts basically, on the hands of 2 people, and that's if one of them wasn't there. And so it was a very, very rare thing. Now, with how many people are doing martial arts now in comparison to 1966, there's just a lot more people who have stuck with it, and a lot more 10th degree black belts. But there's a phrase that's in martial arts, which is the first 5 stripes, meaning 5 stripes on your black belt. The first 5 stripes are what you get out of karate. The last 5 stripes are what you give back. And so the thing that I've been looking at, or I've been doing ever since I quit my competition career, was that I had mentors. I had mentors left, right, and center. I got lucky to meet all the top fighters of the day, and being very inquisitive and kind of a nosy little kid, I asked them questions. And with the exception of one major fighter, every person just was very patient with me and answered my questions and so forth. So when I retired, my whole thought was, okay, give back. pay it back, pay it forward. And I started doing that with my very first karate book, which was called American Freestyle Karate, A Guide to Sparring. And that was the first comprehensive book on the subject. I had people in the long run use that as a training manual or as a belt requirement in their schools. So, that was like a huge, huge compliment. Anyway, getting back to 10th degree, past, fifth degree, I was awarded by different organizations on the way up. But the thing was, is I just continued on. I just continued doing what I'm doing. And, like I said, I've written a ton of books. And the key part on the writing of the books was that somehow, this is one of the things I always feel is that everybody has a knack for something. Everybody has an area in which they are, they are OT, they are, just naturally, right? And
Yeah.
mine was the ability to explain something in such a fashion that somebody who was rank and file, meaning not like a high grade black belt or whatever, but somebody who was a lower belt could understand and duplicate. And so this is where the thrust of my books went into was, first into, free sparring or free fighting, which used to be based on attributes. How fast are you? How limber are you? How strong are you? Are you aggressive minded, et cetera, et cetera. But to be able to break it down so that anybody of any skill, of any attributes, of any personality type can actually learn and duplicate and apply. And then I did the same thing with Filipino stick fighting, which can be quite intricate and quite befuddling if you're trying to achieve an actual degree of skill. But again, the ability to break it down and explain it in such a way that people can understand it. And then the other thing, which is a very, I still marvel at it to this day, but when I'm demonstrating something, let's say for the camera, I can see what the camera is seeing, which means I know exactly the angle that I need to put myself in so that the viewer can see it best. And this is whether in video or in still photography. So over the years, and this is since 1980, over the years, I have been contributing to the martial arts community in my books and videos. And this is something that I've been doing to give back, give back, give back, give back. Anyway, and I'll bring this to a full circle around to the 10th degree black belt. 6 or 7 years ago, I found out that I could test for actually 9th degree. And I thought, oh boy, what a challenge. My 60th birthday, when I'm supposed to be over the hill doing a physical test. And the person who was orchestrating the test, Gary Lee, said, well, anybody who's 6th degree black belt and up only has to do 2 of the 4 requirements. And the 4 requirements were basics, solo exercises, which were called kata, prearranged solo exercises, live self-defense, and then free fighting. And so I told him, I said, well, Gary, look, I'll do all 4. And he's really said, oh, Danny, we can't insist on somebody of your stature having to do all 4. So, look, Gary, I'm going to do all 4. Otherwise, I'm not showing up. It's a matter of pride with me. And so I showed up and, went through about 3 hours of good, clean fun, plus a little bit of hell, and earned, not was awarded, earned my 9th degree black belt. Well, shortly after that, I compiled the type of several books and together and compiled them as a thesis, and I sent them to the main guy of the American Karate Black Belt Association. And I just wrote in there, for your consideration, when you think I'm ready. Sent it off to him and forgot about it. And what was it, 2 years ago, I actually got a call from him, and he said, Dan, don't you think you're ready to move forward? And it took me totally by surprise, because I wasn't chasing it. That's the key thing. I wasn't chasing it. I was just continuing to contribute and, try and make the martial arts people of America or around the world, since books and videos so worldwide, trying to help them get to a higher level faster through my clarifications of things. doing. So, how did I achieve 10th degree? It was just basically persisting on a given course. It was contributing. It was giving back. It was no longer the Super Dan story. Super Dan was my nickname when I was fighting. It was no longer the Super Dan story, but it was, okay, how can Super Dan contribute to others? And, in the long run, that's how it happened.
Wow. I love that. I actually do. I mean, what when you were saying that, I kind of looked at it like, it's kind of like, yeah, you're not like what you were saying, you're not awarded it. Yeah, you're not awarded it, like, meaning like you don't like achieve it, like, oh yeah, look, I did it, and you don't ask for it or anything like that. It's kind of cool. You're just, you earn it. You kind of just, you're not like asking for it or anything like that. You're kind of just doing what you're doing and doing it the way it should be done, and pushing and pushing and pushing and just making it happen. And like you
Yeah.
said, persisting on a given course. And just the way you said it was so cool. It was like, it was spiritual in a way. I think it is. It's spiritual in a way. I think I'm okay to say that, because it's
Well,
like,
it
yeah.
actually, it is spiritual, because the thing is that, the way I look at a person is that, you've got three parts to a person. Okay. You got the meat motor, the body, which, is young, goes through a robust period, then you hit your peak, and then start doing your decline, and then boom, you shuffle off the motor coil. Then you've got the mind, that which you use to, think, with pose problems, come up with solutions, and so forth. And then you've got the individual themselves. And how I liken this is like, to a car. If you got a 2020 car, what you've got is you've got the car itself. Okay, so you've got the body. Then you've got all the computer stuff that goes in it. Tells you how fast you're going, when your engine light comes on, blah, blah, blah. But then you've got the driver. And the car does nothing without the driver. It's got the computer, it's got the body, but unless you put somebody in the driver's seat and they actually turn the key or push the button, it doesn't go anywhere. Now, so it's the same thing here, where the 10th degree black belt, what is it an acknowledgement of? Is it an acknowledgement of the body getting older? Well, I don't think so. Is it an acknowledgement of the whole mental process, the pluses, the minuses, the thinks about this, to figuring out that? Sort of, kind of, maybe. But the thing is what in the long run shines through, and that is the individual, the driver of the car. So what 10th done was it was an acknowledgement by my seniors that I had done the right thing. And when we talk about I, we're talking about the individual, the spirit, and so forth. So it was very spiritual. I mean, and one can look at spiritual just in a very, very nuts and bolts fashion. In that, let's say if you're happy, okay, is it that your body's happy? Well, maybe your body's getting some sort of adrenaline rush or whatever that kind of jacks it up and so forth. Is it your mind? Is it the computer that's happy? Well, no, the computer's the computer. So who's happy? You are. Simple, simple, simple. Look at a spirit. Okay, there you go. You can be happy and accidentally run your shins into the coffee table. Okay, the body hurts, but man, look at that stack of CDs that you just got for Christmas. It's like, wow, this is really impressive, man. I'm jazzed. So, a very simple look at spirit, but that's how I look at it. So this was a primo acknowledgement of what I have been doing as an individual for the last, it's like 2 years ago, so it was the last prior 53 years, and 52 years, and that'll be 54 years this November. So, yeah.
Wow.
Spiritual.
I really admire your dedication and commitment, and the fact that you really do push through barriers and persist, and no matter what, you make things occur and you make things happen. And just like this one, you're rewarded for all of the. It was so funny. It was like you were commended, and I love it. You're commended for all of the work that you have done. And I have to say, it's like, I think that in itself is so amazing and so special, and so it's kind of like anything that I say would be an understatement. I think honestly, I'm just going to leave it there and say that, I mean, honestly, what you just said was super like and inspirational in itself, because it kind of shows me that if you stick with your given course and don't waver and don't veer off into another direction, but just be true to yourself and be true to your goal and be true to your, yeah, just be true to you and yourself and your goals and your and the people around you and helping people. I think people can be commended just out of pure like, wow, look, I wasn't even expecting that, and it's so cool. So I just wanted to add that because I think that was really neat, and I really appreciate you saying that because I think that's really neat. That's really cool. So then the next one, I think this other question here, I think you already answered that, about how did you get to this level. I think you really did answer that, and you answered it very, very thoroughly. And I think we might just leave that there, and then we might just go on to this other question, which is, when going through the trials and errors that come from achieving a target, um, how did you stay energized and focused on the target at hand, which was just being what you said, just pushing through and just staying on your course and not wavering? Because I know that you didn't like necessarily achieve, like you weren't like, oh yeah, well here I really wanted the 10th degree black belt. Yes, that was cool, but you were actually commended with that. So I wanted to just find out, how do you just stay on course throughout the trials and errors that may occur while you're hitting your target? And I think
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me put this in more of a competitive, uh, uh, not sequence, but a competitive viewpoint, because when you're competing, okay, you win, you lose,
Yeah.
and each particular loss can be a stop. Now, one of the things that I had going for me was desire. It was just plain old desire. I wanted to be a champion. And so every time I lost, what I did was I trained harder. Now, it's funny because uh, anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely love music. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull two lines from two different songs that sum it up right away. And one of them was a song by Chicago called Saturday in the Park. And there's this one line in there which says, if you want it, really want it. And that was part and parcel of it. But then the other one was kind of a funny little song that King Crimson had done, kind of a knockoff song called Prozac Blues. And the lyric writer, he writes in there, the thing about depression is you just can't let it get you down. so every time I was bummed out about a loss, basically I went back to the school and I trained harder and I fought harder. And unfortunately for my sparring partners, I would put a harder whipping on them just to try and out create, so to speak, the loss. But here's the other thing is that, and a favorite phrase of mine is that if you know the nature of the beast that you're dealing with, you will not be surprised. So what I researched the area of karate competition. And if I lost to a particular facet of it. Let's say I didn't position myself so the judges could see myself well. Then what I would do is I work on positioning myself so the judges could see what I'm doing or come up with ways of calling attention to myself so they'd start watching me more. Every endeavor has a structure about it. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if art, like guitar, if you're a quilter, if you're a construction person, etc. And the thing is knowing the structure and the basics of that which you're dealing with. Now, it was easy for me to, let's say, continue on. I mean, relatively easy. I can't say it was easy, but in the face of any obstacles, barriers, losses, miss emotions, etc., because I would go back to the basic research of the game itself and go, okay, where did I fall down? Well, I fell down on this particular part. I fell down on that particular part, and then I work hammer and tongs to get over that. And so that would be the first thing that I would do. Now, the second thing, and this was like incredibly important, was that I competed in any tournament I could find, especially in the Pacific Northwest, no matter how big, no matter how small. And especially after I made a name for myself, I would still go to the small tournaments to test out things. And the boxer who has been lauded as the greatest of all time, Sugar Ray Robinson, always talked about keeping the feel of the ring. So instead of only going to the big tournaments, which might have been 6 per year, it would not be uncommon for me to hit 30 or 40 tournaments just to keep the feel of the competition. Didn't matter if the competition was top flight or not. But the thing was, keep my toes in the water, keep the feel of what I'm doing, and then work on the mistakes in the smaller tournaments so that I wouldn't make them in the bigger tournaments. So, long answer to your question, but number one was desire. Number two was understanding the structure of the game or of what I was doing, and then seeing where areas had dropped out actions, dropped out information, missing information. Okay, research more. So that what I could do is, instead of trying to gut my way through it, is methodically plan, go for it, and keep the desire there. And that's basically how I did it. I mean, it's very, very simple. And but the thing is that like I said in that one song phrase, the thing about depression is you just can't let it get you down. You can't let the emotion of the loss stop you. What you need to do is somehow refire the enthusiasm, or if nothing else, just acknowledge the fact that you're bummed out. And you sit there and even if you want to wallow in it for a day, it's like, okay, let's really have fun with this being bummed out. Man, oh God, I just feel horrible. Okay, that's done. Let's go.
I love that. You just acknowledge it and you kind of just go, okay, cool, yeah, I feel that way. All right, let's go on now. I love that a lot. That's really cool. That's really neat. I also love the fact that you said, those points, because it's so necessary to see, what to do. Like there's a whole, like it's like kind of like a battle plan, kind of like an action plan for yourself.
The thing is that if you take a look at the American education system is set up to create workers, not entrepreneurs, not creators, not champions, but workers. But you get the Michael Jordans, the Muhammad Ali's of sports. You get the Steve Jobs. You get these kind of guys, and these guys, they are nowhere in the mold. I mean, who knows where the heck they're coming from? They're coming from left field, or they're coming from further left field. And the thing is that it is so easy to be boxed in by the current education system that one doesn't think out of the mold. But all you need is that special little spark. It's like, here's a great example, and I'll take it off me, but I'll put it on my wife, Reed. And she's always loved sewing and this and that next thing, and she's finally started quilting, but her first paid customer was a very well-known quilter, and she brought her this quilt to be finished, right?
Yeah.
And Marie asked her, so, well, how would you like me to do it? And the quilter said the exact right thing for the exact right moment, which was, you're the artist. You'll figure it out.
I love that.
And that just blew the top of her head right off. It's like, yes, wait a minute. I am the artist. Wham, once you're an artist, you're thinking out of the box. And now you're going to create. And, she's taken her quilting in the same direction that I've taken my martial arts, in that, man, she's taken the ball and run with it. So the thinking with the structure, the knowing of the rules, the having the desire, the not letting the upset stop you. I mean, upset's just a day in the life. If you let upset stop you, you'd have quit after your first girlfriend or your first boyfriend broke up with you. Boom, you wouldn't have gone on. I mean, if you relate it in those terms, then it's like, oh, good. There's a samurai saying from Japan: 6 times down, 7 times up.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love that line. I love that line.
yeah. So that's how you do it. 6 times down, 7 times up. And if you get around somebody that likes that spark or acknowledges a particular facet that you are, with me it was the martial arts. With Marie, it was her painting with threads, so to speak. It was her quilt artistry. Whammo! Then you can take off and you can plow through any opposition.
Beautiful. I don't even want to add to that answer. I think that answer that you just gave was just beautiful, and I think I'm just going to leave it there because I think that people
Fair
will
enough.
just benefit off of that. Just knowing that, I think that's amazing. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That was awesome.
Certainly.
um, let's just move on to the next question because I think that last question was perfectly answered, and it actually inspired me a lot. So I think, yeah, it was perfect. This other question right here. There are so I'm just gonna give just like before I ask the question, I kind of want to just touch on this. It's basically like when you're achieving something, right, or when you're doing something, there are special moments that occur or special things that show up during the time of making that happen. Like you meet a person or you experience something special or somewhat on that path to where you're going to your target. I wanted to actually ask you this question, which was, what were some of the special moments you achieved here and there up to making, up to being commended with 10th degree black belts?
Well, I'll try and keep this down to a relatively short answer because there were a number of key moments. But the first key moment was actually was getting promoted to black belt. And the fascinating thing was I was testing with another fellow, and he and I, we did our basics, we did our free fighting and so forth. And now, mind you, this was the third time I'd taken my black belt test. I failed it on the first 2 times. And the best fighter of the organization, as they got up and left, and I'm pretty sure he did this to dog us, but he said, "That's what brown belts should look like." And then the grading board walked out. And instead of being bummed out, my first thought was, well, if Wild Bill thinks that I'm a good brown belt, I'm happy. And then they came back. I got the promotion, but at the same time, just a terrific compliment by Bill. Um, then there was another moment where, of all people, there was a fellow up in Tacoma, Washington. His name was Steve Armstrong, and he was an icon up there. And he loaned me the money to go back to the 1973 U.S. Karate Championships in Dallas, Texas, because he had faith in me. And that was the day where I won my first national tournament. I was the U.S. Lightweight champion. I beat a guy by the name of Demetrius Havanis. His nickname was the Greek. And what I found out later was it wasn't so much that I beat him, but I beat the Greek in Texas, and nobody beats the Greek in Texas. So that was like a super high point.
Wow.
First time I was rated in the top 10 in the United States. It was just like, whoa, just pretty amazing. And then getting my first book published, and then finding out that was a godsend to many people, because most of the karate books at that time were either primers or they were self-defense manuals, but none dealt with karate free fighting. And I figured, since I was a printer at the time, so I knew what the cost of printing was, et cetera. And I thought, okay, this is my one shot. So I emptied everything that I had at the time into this book. And as it turned out, everybody loved it. So
Whoa.
there were, I mean, there were a number of things, but we could be here all day going over the highlights of Superman. And so I'll just keep it to
Yeah,
those.
I love that. I mean, the reason why I asked you that question too was basically to highlight the good points. Because there are times where we do focus on the bad points and the well, not bad points, but the experiences that we have that are not so great, but they're getting through the barriers, and they're experiences like trials and errors that are just that we all focus on those, but we don't end up focusing on the good points of the special moments that only occur when you're actually pushing really hard and persisting. And
The thing is, here's a funny thing, which probably has something to do with it. But I was training so much that I missed most of primetime television. And, and what is primetime television filled with? It's filled with people losing, failing, this and that, or comedies about people losing, failing, etc.
yeah,
While I was doing is I was breaking a sweat, I was kicking and punching, etc. And so people say if you want to remain upscale and in a much far better frame of mind, stop watching the news. Well, heck, stop watching TV. Pick your movies and watch those. So I think that was something that probably helped.
I love that. Yeah, and I also heard that it's one thing to watch TV, right, and then have the TV create for you and
Mm-hmm.
ruin your create, or you can go out there and create yourself.
Right,
And you can go out there and have your own create and be your own entertainment. You
right.
can be your own thing. You can go out there and go help somebody, or go play in the park with your dog, or go play with your kids, or go play with your cousins or your parents or whatever, and have to be your own entertainment. You don't need to watch somebody else being entertaining you. You can be your own entertainment. That's really all. But
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, I mean, that actually pointed me to a good point there, because I was a little like, yeah, I feel like that would be something real. And then you had brought that up, and I was like, whoa, he picked up on it. That's so cool, which I think is really great.
Mind meld here.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Boom.
one other high point that I should bring up, and
Yeah, do
it's
it.
funny, it wasn't a karate career thing, but it was a personal thing, and that was in what was it, January 1982. Thanks to two very dear friends of mine, Fred King and Laura Walsh. Uh, I took a beginning course in Scientology, and
Wow.
it was a, communications course. And the fascinating thing about the communications course was that I'm a real nuts and bolts kind of guy. If you ask me a question in martial arts, I will lay out A, B, C, D, E, F exactly in very, very precise steps. You follow these steps and you will accomplish this particular effect. Well, you know, uh, I started doing this communications course, and it's like there's a formula here. There are steps here. You mean that this isn't just the variety of I talk, you wait, I shut up, you pounce type of thing? It's like, or you interrupt. And that started me on a personal journey, which filled up, let's say, the other half of my martial arts career. Because my martial arts career, I was a marvelous technician, and I understood the nuts and bolts, the ins and outs of it. But there was a personal element that was lacking. There was in the terms of my ex-wife, I was not a good people person, and it's true, I wasn't a good people person. So starting from 1982, my journey in Scientology has rounded that out to where I'm, a far better people person, and now I can actually reach people with the knowledge that I have, and so that's really, really, brought that forth. Otherwise, there's a lot of accomplishments I don't think that would have occurred just because, I was more egocentric about, it was the Super Dan show. And if you weren't part of the Super Dan show, well, sorry, boss, you weren't part of the Super Dan show. you don't enamor yourself to people that way. So I have to add that as far as one of the highlights that led me to 10th degree.
Well, I'm very glad you did add that because I think that is very, very important. I think there's a religious aspect to everybody's achievements, and I do believe that, since I'm also a Scientologist, I do believe that just the tools that they do have definitely help a lot, and they do benefit a lot in everybody's life. And what's really cool is that communication course you're talking about. It's so vital that even if you aren't somebody that's just focusing on communication every single day, like a customer service rep, I get that all the time when I'm talking about, like, oh yeah, there's a communications course right at my church you should take, or I recommend it. They're like, well, I'm not a customer service person. And I go, well, you don't need to be a customer service person. We all communicate. We all communicate every single day to each other. You don't need to specialize in communication to communicate. You just communicate. And
Right.
I think that's also something that I do value that you said, because it's totally needed that people do understand that there is something out there that can help them communicate better. And I think that's something very, very nice. And I appreciate you touching on that. That was good. So yeah, so basically, I wanted to add this. So we spoke about how amazing, and amazing is an understatement when I refer to your experience in martial arts. And I don't want to like I'm not disparaging it. I don't want to understate anything. So I'm just going to leave it there and say that I think that was just an incredible thing you're doing over there, and I say that with the most sincerity. And I just want to just make sure that you understand that I'm like totally like I'm so glad I had you on. It was so good. It inspired me. Then the second thing I have is as you all know, and as well as many other the viewers that are on right now know, we're in the middle of the situation, and whether or not we have we have the same viewpoints about the situation that we're in. We're all isolated in our houses. We're all this random stuff. I wanted your viewpoint on it, right? And so it says we're in the midst of a situation, and I like your viewpoint on how people can make the most out of this time of isolation. Like, what would you recommend people do right now?
Okay, well, the first thing is that I would stop watching the news, and I would get any medical reports that are actually from qualified medical people. Okay, you go on social media and everybody has an opinion. You watch the news, and of course, what they're going to do is they're going to broadcast, how many people have been admitted either to the hospital, or how many people have, tested positive on the cases of the coronavirus, without referring to a percentage. Let's say, and I'm going to talk just totally off the top of my head here because I really don't know the numbers, but it wouldn't surprise me that, let's say, out of the metropolitan Portland area, which I believe has over 1 million people, if they say, well, gosh, 23 people have tested positive, well, somebody get out a calculator and let's work out what is the percentage. 23 out of maybe 1 million. It's like, okay, guys, we have a serious situation here, but this is not the Black Plague. This is not medieval Europe where you don't have access to various types of medicinal aids, or even to be sanitary, for crying out loud. So that's the first thing, is that there's been quite the hysteria, and part of the hysteria is because of the unknown factor. It is so easy to insert some data, any data, to fill up the void of no data. So the first thing is, stop filling your void with all the negative news, and let's see if we can find out some actual nuts and bolts facts. Number one. Number two is that my viewpoint on this, and I look at this as a karate guy. If I'm faced with a situation, what am I going to do? Okay, if it's a life and death situation, what am I going to do? I'm going to attack. So attack. How do you attack? Well, how I'm attacking is that uh, my martial arts school, the doors are closed. So what do? I connect up with a couple of martial arts business mentors, find out about Zoom conferencing, and I'm running online classes. I'm running online private classes. The other thing is I'm using the extra time to complete several projects that I had embarked on. I've got a book right now, which the proof is at the printers, which has a three DVD complement to it, and I've already put out, let's say, a pre-publication, and I sold 21 of them. Okay, produce. However you're going to produce. One of the things that my wife is doing is, in addition to quilting and finishing different types of quilts and so forth, she's been making masks left, right, and center. Produce. So, what is an area of production that you can get involved in? It can be playing with your kids. It can be reading with your kids. It can be uh, exercising. You can go out on either the bike or the stationary bike. The thing is attack. Do something. Do a number of some things. Uh, even if it's there's gosh, I always wanted to read that book. Well, good. Read the book. Don't sit around and wallow in fear about this because, like everything else, it will peak, then it will go down, and will things resume back to normal? Well, I kind of hope so, but uh, you know, even if it's a bit different, the thing about the human spirit is that it's easy to forget how resilient we are, how utterly resilient we are. And my advice, where I to sit here and advise anybody about anything is, okay, put this thought in your mind: something can be done about it. Okay, the current is the coronavirus with the uh, I forget what the PC term is. I call it blocked. I think it's secure in place or whatever it is. But the thing is, something can be done about it. Okay, what's the key word? Done. Good. Get into doing. Don't get into sitting, contemplating, worrying, uh, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is not the time to be eating bonbons and watching reruns of Oprah. This is time to be doing something. And so, whatever you're doing, and if you're a car mechanic, go out and tune up the car. Go mow the lawn. I spent 2.5 hours 2 weeks ago out in the yard mowing the lawn. Do something. Be productive. So that's what I'm doing to combat it.
I love that. I love that a lot. And I think, even I mean, I follow, you know, really, really good people's advice. I like you and many others, but it's good to know that. It's good to hear that from you, and it's good to get that. And I know a lot of the viewers on here right now are also listening, and they also love that you're on as well and talking about this and talking about karate and talking about all of these various different subjects. I really do think it's so necessary to not freak out, like you were saying, not freak out. Don't watch the news. Get the facts. Fill the void with actual real data and good news. And I think what's really important is that when you're on social media, like what I do on social media is, I'm doing these interviews with incredible people like you and like many others, and I'm doing these interviews because I want to find out more about how you guys are living and how you're living and how you're doing things and the background and just getting inspiration out there and getting data out there that's real and true. And I think we all need to just get that information, every single day. And I'm just providing this as a good thing so that I can get like a bunch of my friends and a bunch of good people together so that we can get that data out there so that they're not focusing on negative news all the time. And getting it from you and getting it very, very clean and without any chaos and nothing added to it, which is exactly what you just did, which is amazing.
Well, thanks. Yeah,
Um,
it's
Yeah.
it's a chaotic time, but yeah, and one of the things is that when I look in a lot of this, I relate to in terms of a self defense mind, and um, one of the interesting things about I finally figured out what was about 2 years ago what all the hubbub about karate styles are, because you get into either Japanese, Okinawan, Korean karate, or you get into kung fu, or you get into Indonesian silat, and so forth. And what you'll get is you get stylists who are very, very firmly attached to that style, and it's the either the best way to go, or the only way to go, or the preferred way to go, etc. But the bottom line on it is that, and I'll tie this in here in a moment, is that what is combat? Okay, combat is chaos. It's two cats in a blender. That's what combat is. And so every single martial arts style or approach puts order into the chaos. That's why kickers love to kick, punchers love to punch, knife fighters like to do knife, because it puts order into the chaos. Okay, so now what do we have with the current the current scene across the planet? Wow, we've got a chaotic situation, man. We got stuff flying left, right, center. And so when I look at this, it's like, okay, good. How do I put order into this? How do I keep myself centered? And one for me, it's production. It's doing something. I've got 2 or 3 books that are on the back burner, which I'll probably start working on because I got more time at home. I've got one that's coming out. I've got my online classes because I want to be a stable individual for all the parents of my kids that are training. Put in order, put in order, put in order. And, I mean, one can even do something as simple as chart out your day. Get up at 6 in the morning, fix coffee, drink coffee. 6:30 in the morning, go for a walk. 7 o'clock, see the kids. Blah blah blah. Anything that throws order into the chaos, and then what you'll find is you'll find yourself being less frenetic, less upset, less filling in or dubbing in with all the wonderfully negative things that are being thrown at us. And so it's basically putting in order into chaos. And so attack, baby, attack.
I love that so much. I think you handled that for me. I think you know what? I think I'm actually I'm actually handling the situation now. I mean, honestly, you did that for me, which is good. Honestly, I really, we're all experiencing random stuff, but freaking ourselves out isn't something that we need to do. We need to put order, like you were saying, into the chaotic situation that's happening. And
Yep,
we're warriors, and we're getting through this, and we'll already get through it. We're gonna make it through. Um,
absolutely.
Now, I want to flow a bunch of power towards you, and you did this amazing interview. I want to give you this time to go ahead and tell us what's going on at Anderson Martial Arts School, and then let us know everything about. I mean, just let us know what's going on and how people can help, and then if people are interested, what can they do with you, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Well, I think either at the bottom of this feed or when it goes on Facebook, you have my website address, which is www.danandersonkarate.com. And in terms of flowing power to me, let's turn this around. Let's flow power to yourself, because the thing is that you know I'm in, as I mentioned at the very beginning, when we were talking about 10th degree black belt, I'm into giving back. I'm into providing, what I can do for you. And one of the things that is so easy to do is it's easy to get lethargic. It's easy to get, because you're staying at home. It's easy to become less mobile. And so what I've done on my website is that I'm offering up virtual lessons, online lessons, just and basically karate exercise type of stuff. You don't have to be a martial artist, etc., but just ways of moving the body. And I've got to. In fact, it's funny you mentioned this now because there's one link that I have to update right away. So I'll do that when I get off.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people going on, Dan.
But, yeah, give me an hour after the interview and I'll have the link updated. But the thing is uh, uh, we are all in this together. That's number one, because, when we're isolated, it is so very easy to feel like, everybody's alone. But the thing is that, thanks to modern day technology, we are so much more connected than we ever were. And, here is, something that I can do for you guys, which is, okay, good. Let's move the body. The body was made for motion. It wasn't made for, sitting in the recliner. And as I always love to say, eating bonbons and watching reruns of Oprah. It's made for getting up and moving, and you don't have to throw it out the window or throw it across the yard or run it into the garage several times to know that you move the body. Just move the body. And but with ways of martial arts moving the body, okay, it's a new venture. It creates something new and interesting to do, which is really a great way to break the imposed boredom, so to speak. Because I tell you, that's probably a bigger killer than the fear of the coronavirus, because many of us are healthy, but people are sitting at home, bored. What do I do? Bored. And so, this is something that, if you go to my website in an hour, don't go now because I don't have it. You go there, in an hour, then what I've got is I've got a link as to how you can join in virtual classes. And so, that would be the first thing. And then, if you're inspired, good. Just share the data to your friends. And, like I said, 1982, starting off with the communications course in Scientology, has helped shift me from being an egocentric person to somebody who wants to actually give it back and pay it forward. Because I know what martial arts did for me. It literally saved my life. And that's a whole nother interview, a whole nother hour long. But long story short, I've always said that, if any of my students can get 10% of what I got out of it, I've done my job well. And so, I'm into give back, payback mode. And so any and all of you out there who are interested, good. Check the website in an hour. And any of you who feel like, oh gosh, it's like, karate or whatever is too high impact. Okay, forget all the Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and Jet Li scene, because you're not going to be jumping over things, breaking things, screaming at the top of your lungs, scaring pets. It's all very body friendly, And so anyway, if you want to flow power, do that, and let me flow power to you. Because hey, we're on this planet, we're in it together. And anything that I can do to enrich your life, or if nothing else, stave off this incredibly isolated and imposed boredom, I'd love to. Thank you.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate you saying that. And yeah, definitely, guys, whoever's watching, a lot of people watching actually.
Good. Hi, guys.
For the viewers, I want to say, Dan has just been amazing and he's incredible. And I do want to say that the link is in the bottom of this thing. It's going Dan Anderson, professional martial arts instructor, danhendersonkarate.com. There it is at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and just type in that URL. Go to his site in about an hour.
Wait 1 hour.
Yeah, he's got to basically make sure that he's prepared for the masses that are going to be arriving on his website like in an hour. Okay.
Good.
And then I also wanted to, before we end this, I wanted to just touch on the people that are coming on to the live stream here. They commented a couple of things. So before we end, I just want to just tell you what they said so that I'm not withholding that from you.
Okay.
All right. So A lot of people did join on. I think there was about 20 people or so, or even more than that actually, that came on. It says, "Hey Dan, hey Ryan, welcome. Dan, it's awesome to watch this." And then her name's Nicola. She goes, "Wow, that's so cool. You have such a value of persistence." So she says that about you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, and then yeah, and then she goes, Nicola says, "OMG, I love that. Stay true to your purpose." Smiley face. And then Nicola again, there's a bunch of people who are saying, hi Dan, hi Dan, hi Dan. Mary saying hi Dan.
Hey guys.
Sartorius is saying hi Dan. I mean, there's a bunch of people who are just communicating. Then Nicola says, "You're a trooper, Dan," with a strong muscle and a stars, an emoji, and a thumbs up. A lot of people are happy that you're on, and a lot of people did show up. And I want to just say thank you so much, and I'm definitely going to have you back on to do another interview very, very soon.
Okay.
It's kind of like a rematch. It's kind of a cool thing, you know. But I definitely did appreciate having you on, and I do value your time. And I want to say one more thing. You know, just on live right here because we're still on. I wanted to say this, and then we'll end it. When I was younger, I actually looked up to you a lot, and I look up to you way more than I did in the past because
who were watching this, I knew him when he was a 14-year-old kid. So there you
go. See? So there you go. You guys have the inside scoop now.
Yep.
But basically, Dan has just been there throughout it all, and you know, he's seen me as this punk, basically a punk, right? A punk kid when I was 14, running around thinking that I was great.
Yeah.
And then I'm here now, and you know, I do value Dan, and I do appreciate Dan. And if you guys can do anything to you know, just you know, flow. I mean, I know Dan has things. I mean, has things that he's doing right now in terms of personal coaching and stuff. But he is in. What city are you in?
I'm actually in Gresham, Oregon, and most people, you know, if you think 11 miles east of Portland, you know, where the Battle of Portland was, okay, then you have an idea. But yeah, I'm in Gresham, Oregon.
Oh, perfect. So then he's in Gresham, Oregon, and as you said, he's like kind of near Portland. If you guys can flow him any power, that'd be awesome. I know you guys are just gonna flood his website like none other. It's gonna be awesome. Share his link. Take pictures with yourself and going on to this website. I think that'd be awesome as well. Just flood Facebook, any social media platform with good news, like he was saying in this interview. And let's just take this interview and roll with it and apply this to our lives. And I think it was really good to have Dan on. We got a lot of information from him. We're definitely going to have him back on. I think it's going to be amazing. And again, thank you so much, Dan. I super appreciate you having me on. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. My hat's off to you. We're going to end it now.
Okay. Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.